Good afternoon. This is Eric Ogle with the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. We are going to go ahead and get the public hearing started. Before we get into the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to see if he wants to provide any introductory comments. Matt Crouch?
Thank you, Eric. It's always helpful if you unmute yourself. So I apologize. Just appreciate all the individuals that have made themselves available to participate on this process, because we certainly take every bit of feedback seriously and consider it as we make decisions for this program. So, I appreciate it, and I will turn it back over to you, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So this public hearing is to go over some additional amendments related to our 2019 action plan. As many of you know, due to the additional allocation from the CARES Act, Indiana has had to make a number of amendments to receive those CARES Act funds, and we have also had to make amendments as we continue to roll out different types of programming. I believe last week, I think it was just last week, that IHCDA provided a number of updates and amendments to the action plan for ESG, HOPWA, and HOME. And today we are going to be focusing on CDBG and some of the additional amendments we are making with our CDBG funds for the for the near future with that. So for today, we will go over some introductions, which we've kind of already done. We'll talk about some background on the plan. We will discuss the details of the amendment that is part of this public hearing, and then we'll open it up to public comments and input. So first off, I am Eric Ogle. I'm the CDBG Program Director with OCRA. If you have any questions or need more details on anything we share today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Normally also with us would be Heidi from Root Policy Research. She was not able to join us today due to prior commitments, but you can also reach out to Heidi and provide any questions or comments regarding this amendment or any of our consolidated and action plans. So just a little bit of background. Every year we have to do an annual action plan. That annual action plan is based on our 5-year consolidated plan. Today we are doing the amendment to our annual action plan that was for 2019 as advised by HUD for CARES Act funds. That means this is an amendment to our 2015 consolidated plan. And so, as I said, we are doing multiple amendments as we continue to roll out the CARES funds. So this is a required part of administering the CDBG program, as well as the ESG program, HOPWA, HOME, and then also Housing Trust Fund. So today we are only going to be discussing our Community Development Block Grant funds. Those two funding sources that we are going to be discussing are the FY 2019 allocation. This is our regular allocation that we get on an annual basis from HUD. And we're also going to be talking about our CDBG CV allocation, which is the first allocation that we have received from the CARES Act. Now, please note that HUD did have a press release announcing a CDBG CV2 allocation. However, we are not discussing that allocation today. HUD has not released any information or guidance about that allocation yet, and so we are at this time not able to receive that allocation or make plans for that allocation. So we will be having another public hearing in the future to receive those funds and provide details on how those funds will be used. But this is not to discuss the CDBG CV2 allocation. So for the two funds that we are covering today, this is the breakdown that we are moving forward with and that are discussing during this public hearing. So with it, the big change is the amount allocated to the COVID-19 response program, which is in the middle of your screen there. With the addition of the CDBG CV funds, that brings that total line up to $23.3 million. So we have made some allocations from those funds as part of our immediate need phase of our COVID response program, but we still have quite a bit remaining in that, and which we will be using for the long-term phase that we will be discussing here shortly. The other change that we have had from the last public hearing where we discussed CDBG was an increase in the administration, a very slight increase, but it just helps us as we have seen increased costs related to COVID in the administration of the COVID response program. It is important to note, though, that is still substantially below the cap, the regulatory cap that HUD has on administration fees. All of the other lines, as I noted, are the same as we had at the previous public hearing for this amendment. So we are still allocating $3.1 million for owner-occupied rehab, and that is through IHCDA, which I believe they are already in the process of distributing those funds. We have $11 million for wastewater and drinking water. These funds were distributed as part of round 2 from 2019 and round 1 of 2020. We have $3 million for stormwater improvements. Again, those funds have been distributed. Stellar, we have $4 million, and those funds have been distributed. We have $2.5 million for public services, and again, those have also been allocated and distributed. And then finally, $1.2 million for Main Street revitalization. Again, those have been allocated to grants. And then, of course, $246,000 for planning, again, which have been allocated. You will note that, as I said, that most of these funds for the other programs have been allocated. That is because we are looking at the 2019 fiscal year. And so we are responsible for making sure that the 2019 funds were distributed by this August. And so we distribute those quite pretty quickly. And so that is why most of those funds have already been distributed. This does not take into consideration or does not relate to our fiscal year 2020 allocation, which we will receive sometime in July. So this is all older funding and not newer funding as far as our regular allocation goes. So again, this is mostly related to our CARES Act funds that we are receiving. So as you know, we use some of our CARES Act funds for our immediate need program. And so now we are moving into a long-term phase of our COVID response program. And so in this amendment, this is what we are updating with this amendment. So the first thing that we want to talk about in this long-term phase is the program criteria. So as with all of our programs, this program is only open to non-entitlement local units of government as defined by HUD and the Act. The eligible activities that we will have for this long-term phase, we are going to limit the activities to loans or grants to small businesses to retain jobs. So for loans, you do have to have a revolving loan fund, or you have to be able to set up a revolving loan fund within 3 months of award. Additionally, we have defined what small businesses, what is a small business for this program. And so that is a for-profit business that has 100 employees or fewer, or it could be a micro enterprise that has 5 employees or fewer, with at least one of those employees being the owner. So this is very similar to our economic recovery activities under our immediate need program. But the focus is long-term and helping with that economic recovery. The maximum grant award is also at $250,000, with the maximum grant amount for administration being 2.5% of the grant amount. Again, this is the same as the immediate need phase of the project, but this is focused on the long-term recovery of the small businesses within the communities. There is required reporting that can go on pretty much forever, depending on how you set up the program. So, we will be discussing that with communities that apply to make sure that they understand the reporting requirements. At this time, we are planning a 2-stage application process, very similar to our regular construction grant programs, where there will be a proposal and an application. So we've also established some criteria for that the local program that the community set up will need to follow. First off, for loans, the loans can be up to $25,000 per business. They can be up to a 2% interest rate and have a up to 1% loan administration fee. So the term of those loans can be either 2 to 5 years with monthly, quarterly, or annual payments. Communities can also opt to defer payments for up to 6 months, but that deferred payment has to be at 0% interest. And finally, any balance must be forgivable if the jobs are retained for 2 years. So if a community makes a loan to a business and 2 years later that business has retained the jobs or has added more jobs, then at that time the loan would be forgiven. So that's for the loans. For grants, the only local program criteria is that the grants are up to $10,000 per business. And so both of these can be given to those for-profit businesses or those micro enterprises. So for this round, this will be a competitive round, and so we have developed a program scoring to facilitate that competitive review. The total number of points possible is 400, with a minimum score of 175 points being required for funding. And that is very similar to our normal programs, where a community, the application has to pass threshold review, which is that legal and regulatory check, and then also get the minimum score to be considered for funding. So the first set of factors that we will be looking at are data-based factors. And so these are all factors that come from various data sources. And most of these come from actually census data. So the first thing that is a data-based factor is low to moderate income percent with a maximum of 60 points here. So if a community has a low to moderate percent of 53% based on census data, then they would receive 53 points. If they have a LMI percent above 60, then they would get the full 60 points. We will also look at the census data for educational attainment, and that will be for 10 points. And so this is looking at the number of individuals 25 and over that have some college or less, and that percentage as compared to the state average. Similar to educational attainment, we have per capita income, and this also per capita market income, and this also is compared as a percentage to the state average. The difference between per capita income and per capita market income is per capita market income is a little bit more accurate because it removes any transfer payments from being considered in that income. So it gives us a more accurate picture of the true income levels of individuals living in a community. Labor force participation. This again, we will be looking at census data and as it compared to the state average. So the lower level, the workforce participation compared to the state average, the more points a community would earn. Local match, this is directly of how much the community wants to put up to match the grant funds. So 20 points it's up to 20 points. However, with this it is, and this is based on a percentage compared to the total, it is important to note that there is no local match requirement required for this program. So communities can choose not to provide a local match for this program. They just would not get any of the points. We're also going to look at the weekly continued unemployment claims for the community, and that will be a total of 50 points. This data will come from DWD, and it is based on the total number of claims that are within that geographic region. And the higher the number of claims, the more points a community would get. As we continue through the database factors, we go to the status of the revolving loan fund. And so in this, we are looking at two factors of does the revolving loan fund have a wait list, and are all of the funds that were in the revolving loan fund, have they been expended? So does the revolving loan fund have a zero balance? The next 10 points will be awarded for communities that want to include a focus on minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses as part of their program. So this could be that a community includes scoring criteria at the local level that awards more points to minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. And the next one is collaboration with the local Main Street organization. So because we are seeing and anticipate many of these funds going to businesses in the rural downtowns and the main streets, those communities that work with their Main Street would get 5 points. As we do with our regular CDBG program, we will also look at regional collaboration. And so in this case, are a group of communities working together to establish a grant or loan program to benefit businesses in a regional setting. There's also points will be awarded for those communities that are participating in our HBPI program. And then finally, we are awarding, going to give some points to communities that applied for the immediate response phase of the program, but were not funded. Those communities that applied but were not funded, we want to reward them for all the efforts they put forward in those as part of that response and all the work that they did in getting those applications submitted. So those are the data-based factors that we are looking at. For the scoring committee review, this will be very similar to the way we handle our regular scoring. It will be a committee made up of 3 individuals, a CL, a program manager, and a individual from grant services. The difference here is we are going to be looking at a few different criteria. So first we'll look at the local program description with a total of 50 points possible. So in that section, we will look at the application process, the program terms, the selection criteria, and then the fund history or program history. The next section is the local program management, and that has a possible of 70 points, where we are looking at the selection committee, fund management, financial stability, and draft materials. We'll then look at the local need, with also a possible of 70 points. And this is looking at the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, the impact of the CDBG funds would have on the businesses, and the impact the residents are feeling from COVID-19 and they would feel from the CDBG funds. And then finally, we have residential input at 10 points, where we will be looking at how the community sought residential input into their program that they are setting up. So with all of this, I want to highlight, as I've been talking, this is what we are proposing. So, these are kind of where we are at and kind of what we are proposing. As we get feedback from you all with today and then any comments we receive, we will continue to review these items. So if you have any other suggestions or other things that you think we should look at, please don't hesitate to provide that feedback. So at this time, we are ready to open it up to receive comment. So as we have done with past public hearings, we are asking that those individuals that wish to provide comment use the raise hand function. Once you have raised your hand, we will call on those and then unmute you. We will call on those in the order that they are, that the hand is raised. To make sure that everyone has a chance to provide comment, we are going to ask everyone to limit their comment to 3 minutes. And we are going to ask everyone to only comment once. If you have comments that are longer or you want to discuss some more details about this, please reach out to us and contact us after the hearing, and we'll be more than happy to get a time scheduled with you to discuss your detailed comments and questions. So at this time, I will open it up to comments. As you are asking your comments, some things that we are looking for, what do you like best about what we are proposing? What concerns do you have? What would you change? And then obviously, what comments do you have today? So does anyone have any comments for today? And for those of you that are not familiar with the raised hand function, it is in the lower right-hand side of your screen, and it looks like a little hand that's being raised. Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands at this time. So for those of you that want to provide comment in writing, we are extending the comment period since we provided an updated draft of the plan today. So you can comment through the end of the day on June 3rd. You can send those emails to either myself or Heidi. And that draft plan is available on our website under our consolidated plan page. So it looks like we have one individual that has raised their hand. So Debbie, you are unmuted.
Okay. I think you just answered my question. I wanted to know how long we had to respond. And then also, is the slide going to be available, since we're just seeing it for the first time? Is it going to be available that we can respond to on the website?
Yes. So we will be posting the PowerPoint to the website along with the recording of this once this is over. And the details of what we've went over also are available on our website in the as an update to the plan on the consolidated plan page.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, not seeing any other hands raised. Oh, looks like we have another one. Jill Curry, you are unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Not related to the long-term projects you just mentioned, but otherwise in the overall 2019 plan, is it planning grants? Do you know when planning grants with your upcoming allocation might be open again, or that OCRA would be accepting those again?
So yes, we are anticipating that to reopen the planning grants in some fashion once we receive the 2020 funds. However, we don't know details of that yet because things continue to change with the pandemic. So we do anticipate reopening the planning grant hopefully in July, but what that looks like or a specific timeline we do not have yet.
Thank you.
So with that and not seeing any other questions, we will wrap up today. Thank you all very much for attending. As we have said, you have till June 3rd, end of the day, to provide comment. That comment can be sent to myself, to our info@OCRA email address, and can also be sent to Heidi with Root Policy. We appreciate the feedback and look forward to moving forward with our the long-term plan in the long-term phase in the future. So thank you all very much, and you all have a great day.